Okay, it's time now for a check of the top business news stories. We're joined by Catherine Bennett from the Business Desk. Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Let us begin by looking at a World Bank report, which seems to include some new predictions about the global economy.
That's absolutely right. So the World Bank has said that the global economy could grow by 4% this year, but that number is highly dependent on vaccine rollout around the world. Last year, the World Bank predicted that the global economy would grow 4.2% in 2021. That has now been downgraded to 4%. After the global economy contracted 4.3% in 2020, the report warns that the outlook is still highly uncertain. GDP growth could be as low as 1.6% if countries fail to stem the number of COVID-19 cases. The World Bank has also made it clear that the global economic recovery is unequal, and some countries will suffer for longer than others. The bank is working with health authorities in over 100 countries to help them get low-interest loans and funding in order to be able to deploy the vaccine on a large scale.
For 90% of countries, per capita incomes declined last year. For a quarter of emerging developing economies, per capita income losses basically erased all the gains of past decade. So as much as growth is coming back, there are still significant challenges in many parts of the world.
Now we can take a look at the markets. European stocks closed mostly lower today. Investor sentiment hit, of course, by the UK announcing a strict lockdown and vaccine rollout remaining slow across Europe. The FTSE was up over 0.5%, while the CAC 40 and the DAX both fell around 0.5%. Over Wall Street, stocks are recovering, looking much more positive than yesterday after sharp losses in the session on Monday. The Dow Jones up 0.75%, and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq making further gains of around 0.8%. The New York Stock Exchange has reversed its plan to delist 3 Chinese telecom companies after further consultation with regulators. The original decision harks back to President Donald Trump passing an executive order back in November, which banned Americans from investing in Chinese companies owned or controlled by the military. But there's been little clarity on how to implement the ban and what it means for investment, particularly during a time of changeover to a new administration. There are more than 200 Chinese companies listed on US stock markets, and they're all at risk of being caught in the crossfire of Trump's trade war with China. TikTok, Huawei and Tencent are some of the Chinese companies that have been targeted by the Trump administration in the past. And China will, of course, be hoping that the new Joe Biden administration could de-escalate tensions. Beijing has been coolly responding to all of this, saying that it would have a negligible effect on Chinese companies, but it would have an impact on whether the rest of the world views the US as a trustworthy financial center.
Recently, some US political forces have been unreasonably suppressing foreign companies listed in the US. The action reflects the arbitrariness and uncertainty of their rules and systems. The suppression of Chinese companies will have very limited direct impact on related Chinese companies, but it will damage the US's national interests and its own image, as well as the global status of the US capital market.
In late December, EU legislators announced that they had reached a deal on a coronavirus recovery fund that would give out €750 billion. Member states have to hand in detailed plans for how they plan to spend their share of the money. But spending the money isn't that simple for some countries. Often that's because the funds get tied up in convoluted administrative and political procedures. 2 countries in particular, Spain and Italy, are notoriously bad at spending money handed down to them from Brussels, a process known as absorption. In 2019, Italy had the slowest absorption rate across the whole of the EU, with only 30% of funds actually being paid out. Italy is due to receive the lion's share of the recovery fund, an estimated €208 billion. Now, Italy's government is consumed by internal sniping over how to spend that money. Charlie James has more on how the crisis is threatening to upend Italy's economic recovery.
Italy is set to be the largest recipient of the EU's €750 billion COVID recovery fund, designed to jumpstart economies post-pandemic. That should be good news for the nation hard hit by the coronavirus. But the debate over how to spend the money has set a political crisis in motion. Former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi is threatening to withdraw his Italia Viva party from the ruling center-left coalition, which would force its collapse. Renzi argues that current Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's economic recovery plan is not ambitious enough.
Non saremo mai complici del più grande spreco di denaro che potremo avere nella storia repubblicana. Se vogliamo andare avanti, si va avanti su un progetto, la palla tocca al governo.
This week, Conte will submit his revised plan to the government cabinet for approval. If Italia Viva's two ministers refuse to endorse it, that's where the real trouble starts. There could be a cabinet reshuffle, a new prime minister, or even snap elections. Italy needs a plan that makes the most of these relief funds to tackle its huge public debt and struggling economy. A political crisis would suck up precious time at a moment where swift action is sorely needed.
The Japanese carmaker Honda has said that it will have to halt output at its UK factory for a few days due to disruption caused by COVID-19 and Brexit stockpiling. Honda is one of many manufacturing companies that use just-in-time operations, meaning that sometimes vehicle parts arrive just moments before they are used. But record delays at Britain's ports and all along supply chains meant that some parts haven't arrived in time, or cargo containers are stranded far from where they are meant to be. The factory is hoping to restart production on Thursday. And now to end with a very sombre topic, at least for those of us living in Paris. The beloved British chain Marks & Spencer has been unable to receive deliveries because of Brexit. That's right, new trade rules are to blame for the shop's empty shelves and disappointed customers. Fresh products are prepared in Northampton in the UK and transported to France every day. But supply chain disruption has seen customers walking away empty-handed from the Paris shops. We can listen to one man in Paris whose dinner plans were cruelly disrupted.
Empty shelves, no bun for my bread, for my burger. So yeah, I was pretty shocked actually. So because there isn't any, the shelves are half empty. We haven't got the stock. There's no buns. So now I have to go to another supermarket. But it's a small problem to have, you know.
Well, I personally am extremely affected by this delay in the supply chain. I really hope they sort it out soon. I need my cheddar.
Yes, I need some yeast extract
Quite.
paste without specifying any brands.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to speed on that and all the other goings on in the world of business. Catherine Bennett from the Business Desk.